On this episode of Wiser Than Before, we're talking about drainage. This is going to be for you if you have any kind of fatigue, lethargy, heaviness, feel groggy or have difficulty waking up sometimes, if you've got any weight gain or trouble putting on weight, if you've got any swelling, edema, fluid retention that's chronic, if you don't detox well, if you get lots of reactions, all those symptoms relate back to drainage in some way. So drainage is a really important piece of health. It gets treated not too differently from the plumbing or sewer lines in our home or town or city. It's like nobody even knows they're there till they get backed up. And then it's a huge problem. All hands on deck. This needs to be fixed ASAP. And it can go that way in the body too. We tend to just take it for granted that our body can do all these amazing things, all the amazing functions it carries out: breathing, creating energy, digesting, breaking down food, rebuilding. All those processes require raw materials, energy, and then there's going to be byproducts. There's going to be waste that needs to be removed. No different than a factory or manufacturing that creates products. It ships raw materials in, creates something in the factory, and then there's byproducts and waste that need to be disposed of. So this is happening every day, all the time in our bodies, and it's truly amazing. And when our body can keep up, when it can keep draining and excreting the waste products, along with any toxins that also need to be excreted, then things go relatively smoothly. We feel well, none of it bothers us too much. Our body is made, our body can handle the waste and toxins, and we go about our lives feeling okay. But if your drainage starts to slow down, or there's more waste or toxins than your drainage pathways can handle, eventually you will start to feel that. And if it goes on long enough, we start to get a buildup of drainage and toxins. That's called stagnation. And stagnation or waste accumulation, that can be the beginning stages of poor health or eventually disease. We tend to think of disease in its very end stages, maybe as a label, as a diagnosis, or at a minimum, a collection of symptoms. But actually, it started way before that. It started before the symptoms appeared. The symptoms are your body's message. It's an alarm bell. It's saying, hey, something's not right. Something's not working. That doesn't happen immediately. The body can put up with a lot. It can deal with a lot. So by the time symptoms arise, and I'm talking about chronic health issues here, not breaking a bone or something obvious like that. But with chronic health, by the time symptoms arise, that's been building for a while, and your body's just starting to speak louder to you with the symptoms. So at that point, we can no longer take the drainage pathways for granted. It's something we need to look into. And this is something that I had really no idea about till I went through my health issues. Sure, I took my biology classes and anatomy classes and knew in theory how this worked, but did I do anything to support it in my body? Did I ever give any thought to, is my drainage working well? How can I help it work better so I can stay healthy and young and vibrant? No, I didn't. Didn't happen till I got way down the road of this toxin and waste accumulation, had a lot of health problems that I needed to unwind. And this is one of the things I learned about. And it made a huge difference for me. And I've also seen it make a huge difference for many of my clients. So I've had clients where just addressing drainage, boom, suddenly the symptoms get cut in half. People with insomnia suddenly sleeping. People who felt heavy after meals or constipated, suddenly they're light. They can eat a lot more, tolerate a lot more, feeling significantly better, maybe not 100%, but better energy throughout the day. And if you step back and think about it, it's like if drainage is affected, if toxins and waste aren't leaving your body at the speed they're accumulating, that's going to take your health downward. I mean, imagine in your home if suddenly you couldn't take out the trash as fast as it piled up. I mean, it might not matter the first day or week or even month, but eventually you just have piles of trash all around you. The place would stink and smell. It would not be a nice place to live. And it's kind of gross to think about, but something similar is happening in our body. If the toxins and waste are building up, the body just has to tuck it away in these corners, stack it up, pack it in there just to manage it till the day comes when it can flush more of that out than is coming in and accumulating. For this reason, I really think about drainage as a glass ceiling to the level of health someone can achieve. Because if they can only drain so much, then their health can only improve so much, because we have to get drainage working better, at least a little bit faster then the waste is building, and then the toxins are coming in order for health to start to improve. That's why it's so important. And it's especially important if you want to detox or if you need to detox, which would be because maybe you've accumulated some environmental toxins that we're exposed to nowadays. Things like cleaning chemicals from the home, buildings you work in or go to school in, plastics from our food and water. A lot of people have trace uranium in their water that they pick up and accumulate over time. Other chemicals, pharmaceuticals in the water, pesticides from food. You get the idea. It kind of goes hand in hand with modern life, accumulating chemicals or toxins and having some exposure. So most people need to do a little detox, help the body to move those things out. But you never want to do that until your drainage is open and working, right? Because the last thing you want to do is take these poisonous toxins that the body is packaged away for safekeeping. It's put it away where those toxins will cause minimal damage. And the last thing you want to do is push them out of the cells or the fat or wherever it's stored without a clear path to the exit. If your drainage isn't working well, it's clogged or partially clogged, those toxins get pushed out, they're going to redistribute in your body. And it's going to be a much more random occurrence than where they were placed the first time, because your body and immune system is going to have to scramble a little bit to deal with this new influx of toxins in the bloodstream or the drainage pathways. And that's how toxins can get redistributed, like the brain or nervous system or other places that we definitely don't want those toxins accumulating. So let's look at these drainage pathways a little bit more, get a better idea of what they are, and then we'll look at some solutions, things you can do to support drainage to make sure your drainage pathways are open, wide, and flowing so your body can move out as much waste and toxins as it needs. And if you need to do a detox, that's successful and not a painful experience. So your body has 4 main ways of expelling toxins. It does it through poop, through pee, through sweat, and through breath. So we'll start with poop and the bowels, because that's where a substantial amount of toxins and waste material leaves your body. It's kind of the bottom of the chain for drainage. All the drainage above it filters down, and the large intestine, your colon, is the final collection point and then exit point. And because of that, it's absolutely essential that waste can continuously flow out and leave the body. So if you're constipated or have slow bowel movements, this is why it's so important to make sure and keep supporting that, to keep your bowels moving, keep having bowel movements every day. Now, conventional medicine will accept as little as 1 bowel movement a week and say, oh, you're still okay, or maybe we'll give you laxatives if it continues. If you look at functional medicine, which is more focused on optimized health, they'll usually say once a day is the minimum, but ideally 2 or 3 times a day. And if we look at an ancient tradition like Ayurveda, that lens is usually going to say you should have a bowel movement after every meal. Now, back in the day, Ayurveda practitioners were very, very attuned to their body. The digestive system was clean and a well-functioning machine. So these days, not a lot of people do that, and that's okay. But when the digestion and drainage channels of the human body are really in tip-top shape, that's what we can do. But making sure you're going once a day as a starting point is great, and then you can build from there. Now, if we look at drainage deeper in the body, from there, we'll work our way up the intestines, which is obviously where all the waste comes from and accumulates in the large colon before it exits the bowels. But really, the liver plays a big role of processing toxins, packaging them up, and then sending them into the intestines so they can be excreted out the bowels. And it does that through bile. So the next big area of drainage to be aware of is the liver, gallbladder, and the bile ducts that connect them and ultimately let bile flow into the intestines. So the toxins in it, the waste matter in it, can flow out the body. And this is where a lot of people I see nowadays have trouble. We put our livers under a lot of stress, again, just with some of modern life and the toxins and chemicals I mentioned earlier. Our diets also add to that with hard to digest foods. Our diets also add to that with hard to digest foods, chemicals or other processed ingredients that are packaged into foods. In order for the liver to process all the toxins, it requires a lot of nutrients, things like vitamins and minerals and other cofactors to help flip those enzymes on and create the chemical reactions that process the toxins into a form that can be more easily drained out of the body. And those issues can carry over to the gallbladder too, as the liver processes the toxins, creates the bile starts to flow through the bile ducts down into the gallbladder, where it's stored and pooled up, waiting for the next meal with some fat in it, at which point the gallbladder contracts, squeezes a lot of the bile into the small intestine, helps with digestion, and sends those toxins on their way down through the intestines, ultimately out through the bowels. So once again, if we don't have the right vitamins and minerals, the composition of bile is compromised. If we don't have enough hydration, that bile can start to get thick and sludgy. And then when it sits in the gallbladder, if this happens over long periods of time, that sludge can condense and start to form stones. Then we've really got a problem, because we've got toxins in these stones that aren't going to flow at all like the liquid bile does through the bile ducts. So some of those stones are just sitting in the gallbladder. Plus, all the new bile that's created isn't going to flow as well, because instead of a smooth inner membrane in the gallbladder, there's now these hard, heavy stones to contend with. Not a pretty picture, but I want to paint the picture a little bit, because it gives a little better idea of like, oh, okay, this is how drainage works, and this is why it's important. Again, I had to learn all this stuff when my gallbladder was spasming and I was having all kinds of pain in my abdomen, radiating up to my shoulders and neck, making it impossible to sleep some nights. I started to learn about this stuff and put it all together like, okay, this drainage piece is pretty important. So to summarize, we need hydration, nutrients, and good energy so the liver can do all its processing of the toxins, create good thin bile that it sends to the gallbladder, which then sends into the intestines that can then and eventually out the body. There's one more piece in this chain, which is our lymph. A large part of the lymph nodes are an important part of the immune system that collects pathogens like virus and bacteria and other things that aren't supposed to be in the body. And the lymph network permeates all throughout the body, all into the little tiny corners of different tissues and organs. It's all over. And a lot of the debris that it collects eventually come back to the liver to get processed, to get excreted. So your lymph is another area that can get congested, clogged up, overwhelmed. And if that happens, that's kind of like a sewer system, like where suddenly it can't flow through anymore. And if it gets completely clogged, it'll back up. And just imagine this fluid in your body that's supposed to be flowing along these channels and circulating all the time. If it's suddenly blocked, it's like a dam. It starts to back up. Then it's going to expand, and it's going to start to go places you don't want it to go, that it's not supposed to go in the body. So it creates a messy situation. And it's absolutely incredible the way our body can adapt. There are people who carry many pounds of this backed up congested body fluid. And when they start to get their drainage going, boom, that weight comes off, swollen tissues start to shrink. And I've had clients, they absolutely cannot believe it, like how much progress they can make in a week or a month with what they thought was stubborn belly fat, and 5 times a week workouts wasn't doing anything to budge. That's because it wasn't fat, or it wasn't an exercise related issue. It had more to do with drainage, toxin accumulation, and the body doing exactly what it needed to manage the situation at the time. Then they started getting support for the drainage system or the lymph, and boom, suddenly everything started flowing again. And they tell me they felt like they deflated in a matter of days. So really incredible what our body can manage and put up with, and also incredible how powerfully it can respond when we start to give it what it needs and clear away some of that stagnation. All right, so that explanation got a little more technical, a little more anatomy than I intended. So I'm not going to do the same thing with the other channels, but just know it's a similar idea for pee and the kidney filtration system, and also sweat and the skin, and to some extent your breath and the lungs, though that works a little bit differently than the more fluid systems. Now, as far as how to support drainage, improve drainage, there's different ways to go about it. I've already mentioned some of what I'll call the basics, the foundations, arguably the most important, but people don't really want to hear about the basics. They want to hear about the sexy thing. What's the one powerful intervention that's going to change all this overnight? So I will talk a little bit about some supplements or some more focused options, but just know that the basics are the foundation. they're the most important piece. A lot of times drainage gets clogged because something in the foundations was off, just not fully optimal for a long time, for years and years. And even if you could completely open up your drainage and clean it out without changing any of the foundations, it's just going to close up again if that's part of the problem. So hydration, it's not just a good idea so you don't feel thirsty. One other important reason would be helping drainage, helping the flow of your body. Same with your nutrition. Another reason to eat healthy foods, nutrient-dense foods that are packed with vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients. It supports this whole process. Now, as far as more targeted interventions, I'm just going to talk about two, really. One category I'm going to call therapies, and the other category I call supplements. So with therapies, I've already done a few episodes on specific therapies that I'll refer back to. But for example, for the colon, great therapy is getting a colonic from a really skilled, knowledgeable colon hydrotherapist. The right colon hydrotherapist can undo years and decades of stagnant waste that's building up in the colon and maybe slowing drainage. So if you've got an issue with that part of your drainage system, that's really where I recommend starting. From there, it can work well to transition into enemas, in this case, just water or saltwater enemas, which is just a more gentle, smaller version of what you get at a colonic. It can be done at home. Pretty simple, quick procedure, but it really helps keep the bowels moving, make sure toxins don't stagnate and putrefy inside us, and that they can just drain out. From there, if your body needs even more support, which some people definitely do, I definitely did, you can graduate to coffee enemas, which are a much stronger intervention. They stimulate the liver to release and dump a lot of toxins, maybe some bile too. So that's more of a systemic therapy that's going to hit a number of parts of the drainage system. But you just want to make sure that the bowels are working, the colon's clean before you go prompting the liver to dump some deep-seated stuff. But if you're ready for that, it can be a huge boost. And there's a lot of people that tentatively start with coffee enemas, and then they become big fans and start to do them more frequently than they ever thought they would, simply because it helps their drainage and they feel the toxins leaving their body. They feel lighter. They know they're feeling better, and they just keep chipping away at that buildup and stagnation over time. And for some people, they find coffee enemas do that. And then a final intervention, if you want to go even further than those three, would be a liver flush. I would consider this a more advanced procedure, not because it's hard or inaccessible. Literally anyone can do it, but it's a big event for the body. It can really flush a lot out. It's definitely not a starting point. And sometimes if you start, it's not like you can just do one and stop, because it starts to move things from deep in the body, deep in the liver. And once that process is started, you might have to do multiple rounds of it to keep things going. Similar to what I said before, like with detox, like if you're going to prompt the body to loosen some of these things that have been packed away and the body isn't moving on its own, then you have to be ready to support the body so you can keep that drainage moving, funneling these things out of the body, and they don't get redistributed somewhere more sensitive in the body. So that would be a progression of therapies that can really open these channels up and move out a lot of toxins. As far as the supplement side, which we've all been trained to love and put a lot of importance on, what's that one pill that I'm going to take that's going to make all the difference? Well, there's probably not one pill that's going to make all the difference, but popular ones, things that can help, would be an herbal liver support. Some popular herbs are milk thistle, marshmallow root, dandelion root, but that's also something that's best discussed with your practitioner as far as what's going to be best for you and your situation. For constipation, there's a lot of herbal support out there. Or another thing that works pretty well as a starting point before a colonic or something like that would be magnesium. Magnesium citrate is good just for drawing more water and moisture into the colon, which can help some people have more regular, easier bowel movements. And magnesium oxide is good for delivering oxygen into the intestines, which can help with breaking down any compacted waste material that's in there, clearing out some pathogens, and just opening that drainage pathway. For the kidneys, there's lots of herbal support out there, and the kidneys are quite delicate. They're different than the liver, which is a bit more robust and can take a bit more of a beating. So it's really important, if you're going to be doing drainage or detox of the liver, to also take time to support the kidneys. Another great way to support the kidneys is just hydration with lots of water or lemon water, and also herbal teas. Stinging nettle can be a great one. And if you have kidney stones or know you have a little more stagnation in your kidneys, talk to your practitioner. There are specific herbs that are good at breaking that stuff up. Piedra would be one to look into. It's called Stonebreaker in English. So there's lots of different ways to support the drainage, from the foundations to those therapies to more targeted herbs and supplementation. One more caution, that as you get into the more aggressive therapies and even some of these herbs, they can be strong. So it's not something to take lightly. It's not something to just start down in a bottle. I really recommend working with a practitioner who can help you fine tune that, guide you through what's happening, and make sure you're going about it in a way and a speed that's best for your body. I know when I started, I thought about it just like throwing dynamite sticks in there and let's just blow this stuff wide open. And it just doesn't work that way. We don't want to go too slow or too fast. We want to go at the right speed. And a lot of times that feels slower at the beginning than you want, but in the long run, it's what works best. So I hope this overview helps you. Hope you're able to support your drainage, keep things moving better, and that lightens your load a little bit and leads to you feeling a little better, a little healthier down the road. If you try this stuff out and it helps, I'd love to hear about it. Let me know. You can send me a DM on Instagram. I'm Josh__Dodds, and I'll see you in a couple days for the next episode. Stay wise.